Farming Simulator 22 is an amazing game with a ton to do. From the wide array of vehicles you can operate to the beautifully crafted maps and extremely competent AI workers that never screw things up. But the biggest draw has always been the crops, and that is my focus today. Of the many crops available in the base game, there are many I haven't even touched. With Farming Simulator 25 releasing right around the corner, that's something I want to change before that new game comes out. So join me in this adventure as I plant and harvest all 16 arable crops on one farm in beautiful Erlengrat. This is Farming Every Crop. Well, howdy do, farmers, and welcome to the Swiss Alps. You can see I got myself a little updated look to match the situation. Went a little more European, and I just had to switch it up, man, but keep the shades. Very important. Giving a quick little tour of the map we're going to be working on today, and the farm here. This is the starting farm with a few modifications here in Erlengrat. A really cool map. I mean, look at those Swiss Alps. They are beautiful. We got our cow friends over here. Not going to be focusing too much on animals, at least for the time being, but got some food for them. They were already here, so why not feed them? We got a few tractors in here, and we got our dog, of course. Hello, hello. As well as a car, little mower, a few more things over here. As we look around here, you might notice a lot of this equipment is really small, especially compared to some of the stuff I have used in some of my other videos. This is going to be a pretty small scale operation in today's video. With us planting all the different crops, we're going to try to keep the acreage down to somewhere between 5 and 10 acres per field, just to give a quick look at every single crop in this wonderful game. But yeah, we're here, and you know, I think it might be time just go ahead and get started on planting. So we do have 16 different crops to plant. You can see I'm starting with a good amount of money there in the top right, 3 million. I'm a very wealthy farmer, but I want to expand out my horizons and plant every crop in the book. Right here is the starting farm. It doesn't actually include any land. I mean, there's a little bit that you can kind of make your own, but I did add quite a good chunk of the map. With us farming 16 products, and it's going to be a few more fields than 16. Most of these fields are pretty small, maybe 6 acres, 9 acres. As I said, it's like 5 to 10 range or so. Without further ado, let us get started with our first crop in the ground. You know it's going to be a good day when you hop on the Bueller. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. All I know is I look hilarious riding around on this thing, so I am down. All my tractors here are between 100 and 200 horsepower, so none of this equipment is super huge, as I mentioned. In terms of mods, I really don't have too many enabled. I obviously have precision farming there in the top left, and I have a few quality of life mods like auto drive and courseplay, some of my must-haves. But it's going to be pretty bare bones, very base game. I want to keep things very base game just to show everything off. I want you to be able to just pick the game up and farm any of these crops if you really want to. I won't be including any of the DLC crops, so there's parsnips, carrots, that sort of thing. I want to keep things base game. I want to look at Farming Sim 22 as it is, without all those extra expansion packs. Our plan for every single crop in the base game is pick a field, plant it, and then harvest it at the end of the year. But all these fields to the right are in my name in this little area down here, and we're going to make full use out of all of them. Cover them all with different crops. I'm very excited. Some might get harvested before we even plant the next ones. That's just kind of how seasonal growth works in this beautiful game. But I'm excited to get farming, and I'm also excited for Farming Simulator 25. Thank you for the ad, Giants. Well, this thing looks hilarious. Man, does it move slow. Oh boy. But look at that farm up there. It's looking very pretty. I am really enjoying this map already. The reason I picked Erlengrat is it's one of the 3 base game maps, and I haven't actually farmed here near whatsoever. I kind of did like one little starter farm and maybe played like half an hour on it one time, but since then I haven't really touched it, so it is time. So as you might have guessed if you saw what I am looking around here, the very first crop we're going to be putting in the ground is grass. Now I am going to separate this out into kind of 2 different products just to show their harvesting differences. So we're gonna make a hay field and a silage field. I could do like just a separate grass one, but I mean it's kind of the same process just without the extra steps to turn it into hay or silage. Now all these fields are ours. I think I'll just start with the closest one, you know, might as well. We have the base game roller planter. Now you can use bigger planters to plant these, and I might even get the other field going with a bigger tractor, but this is the biggest roller slash planter you can get in the game. Only needs about 100 horsepower, which is perfect for this tractor right here. I mean, without further ado here, let's just get planting. Turning all this on and getting it moving and grooving. We have grass in the ground. It is August here. We have a few different plants that we can plant today. That's one thing that's always kind of confused me about Farming Sim 22 is why do you start in August? I feel like it would make a lot more sense to start like in the spring. A lot more crops to put in the ground, a lot more stuff to do in spring versus August. But there's a few things we can plant today, and grass is definitely one of them. Now, the one nice thing about this planter is it does double as a roller, specifically for grass. So one thing you can do with grass that is very unique to it is the fertilizing process. So you can use the standard liquid or solid fertilizer on these guys. It'll work totally fine and normal as you'd expect. But the other thing that you can do specifically with grass is use one of these grassland rollers and it will fertilize between plants. Grass is one of those products that once you plant it once, you just harvest it whenever it's fully grown and it will regrow back on its own. Now, we'll lose states of fertilization after you harvest it, so fertilizing will need to happen to keep yield high, and this is just one of the ways to do it. This is probably the one most people will use. It's really not too expensive. I think this thing is like $20,000. That is one thing about grass. It is extremely cheap to get started and very easy to get into. You can plant it nearly all year long. You can do multiple harvests a year. You can save money by fertilizing like I just mentioned. It doesn't use a ton of seeds, and if you keep a field grass all year long, you only have to plant it one time ever. Now, the one thing about that fertilizing, like I mentioned, it definitely can save you money, but you can see the working width on this thing is not great. It's decent for a planter, especially for this size and only requiring 100 horsepower, but for fertilizing, it is hard to compete with how quick some of those solid fertilizer spreaders in the base game, and even the liquid, the sprayers, they have huge widths. Obviously the solid one, it's like in the 40 meter working width, whereas this one is like 6 or so. You're gonna save money each time you run one of these little rollers instead of fertilizing. Like, you don't have to pay for the fertilizer, but it will cost you in the long run. It's gonna put a lot more hours on your tractors and equipment, so that's the one thing I don't like about that personally, but it's always an option. If money is a little tight, guess what, you can just bust out this roller and you're good for fertilizing. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. Grass is one of the easiest things to maintain in the game, to plant and farm, and it actually has a ton of profit potential with some of the products that you can go into, especially silage. I mean, I feel like I can't talk about silage enough. It is very likely the best crop in the game from in terms of like effort into profit potential, but silage is very easy to make. It sells for probably way more than it should on its own, and then you can feed it into the biogas or things like, you know, TMR for your cows. There's all sorts of uses for grass. You can even turn it into hay instead, like we're going to do on one of these fields. In my book, they're very distinct products, even if they are acquired through extremely similar means. Silage is just such in a tier of its own in terms of crops in this game. It is just crazy how good it is. Some might say too good. I wonder if it will be this good in some of the future games. So look at this fine European gentleman driving through the Swiss Alps, planting his hay field. We technically could feed all of this hay that I'm about to make to our cows. I'm sure they would love it. So what a fine denizen of the Swiss Alps would do. I do like how my character, if you watched any of my other series, which I have multiple of, I just released a big long video of doing 5 years of potato farming. It was very brutal, as you might imagine, but I changed my character around a little bit every single time, but he always has a little bit of the tater charm. Okay, we got us a farmhand on this, and I'm gonna get this other field started since we do have another planter that can plant grass. As I said, all three of my tractors are small. This one is right around 200 horsepower, but as you can see, pretty small little operation. I like keeping it this size for a little video like this. We're just getting a quick look at every product in the game. Thought I'd have some fun with it. Just wanted to make sure that I farmed everything. There are several of these that I have actually never farmed. We're actually about to get into one of those here shortly. But first things first, we got to start a little basic with the crowd favorite of grass. So a little bit of a bigger field means a little bit of a bigger planter. That roller is nice, very economical. This one is quite a bit more, this planter. However, it does plant quite a few different things. We are going to be using it again today for one of our other products. The one thing about grass is it is extremely good at just rotating with some other crops. What that means is you do end up planting quite a lot of grass. I mean, you do at least one plant a year. So while that roller isn't too bad for like a first time plant, especially on a smaller field like that one, doing it at scale on some of the bigger fields, it gets a little old having something that small. But yeah, I think I have yapped enough about pretty much the most basic crop in the game in grass. I will just go ahead and get these fields covered in it, man. Taking a quick break from the crops to say, if you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I will be making several more videos like this. I have multiple other series on the channel where I do fun stuff, both episodic and complete series. Making fun stuff for Farming Simulator and soon Farming Simulator 25. Back to the video and hope you enjoy. Working on the last couple passes here. We almost got our very first field of crop planted here in Erlengrat. Farmhand over there almost done as well. Riding on that fancy open air tractor, and by fancy I mean very unfancy. This is by far the more luxurious of the two setups, but he has a smaller field, man. Come on. I believe we have 2 or 3 more products we can actually plant today, one of them being kind of a non-product, an oilseed radish. Maybe I'll even just do that one next. I think it's kind of a goofy quote-unquote crop, but you can technically plant it, so I am choosing to include it. And right on cue, looks like our farmhand finished his field and I finished this one. Almost perfectly timed, honestly. 2 fields of grass, a silage field, and a hay field. One or the other. I'm not quite sure which one is which, but we'll worry about that later. Either way, grass planted. Let us move right on to our next crop, quote-unquote crop, the oilseed radish. I'm able to plant it with this exact same planter, and I'm going to choose one of my smaller fields in this little strip right here. What you do as I get planting it right here is you plant this after harvesting a different crop, let it grow for a bit, and then you quote-unquote harvest it by just like cultivating it into the ground. It's technically like an algae that will grow on the surface of your field, and then you can just turn it up with the land with a cultivator and it will fertilize that ground. Don't know how much it's used in real life farming, but to me it is pretty bad in Farming Sim. It can be kind of fun to switch things up and get a little bit of variety instead of just, you know, running your sprayer or your fertilizer spreader every single off season or multiple times a year if you're, you know, doing rotations. All it means is you just got to run your planter, which typically aren't the best working with of all your tools on the farm. Running your planter again instead of some of your widest working with stuff in the fert spreader or the sprayer is just like pretty ridiculous to me. I really don't see the benefit there beyond just variety and fun, which I guess this game is all about, but I think sometimes I just respect my time a little a little more than that. I'll get a field of it covered here, but there really isn't too much to say, man. Yeah, do this if you don't want to spray fertilizer again, I guess. On the day, we have oilseed radish right there, 2 little fields of grass, and I believe we are ready for the next crop to be put in the ground. For our next crop that we will be farming, I'm driving down here to the farming shop. This is the very first one on our list thus far that does require some specialized equipment. And that crop that I am referring to is poplar. Now, poplar is definitely a weird one in Farming Sim 22. It essentially is like a much easier way to get wood chips versus having to get a lot of specialized equipment for doing lumber. Now, the easiest way to just look at what you need for a lot of these things is you can go into the shop and then click on this little box, which is like packs. I like doing that for stuff like this. And one way to harvest it is with a forage harvester and using a little trailer there. You can also make bio bales, which is probably what I'll end up doing. But most importantly, here is a little planter here. This plants new trees into the ground. You do use this for planting regular trees as well for lumber, but it also does poplar right there. That's that little icon. You can also buy poplar saplings to feed into this thing. It's definitely a weird little contraption here, but one box will fill it up. The one cool thing about poplar planting is it does cultivate at the same time, or basically plow the ground. You don't need to do it on a prepared field like these ones over here. However, it's totally doable on either one. It's a very unique crop in that it's not really a grain. You don't use a combine. It's similar to lumber because you get wood chips out of it at the end, but it does have its advantages too, as I have to completely turn around. I obviously don't know this map very well, but we're working our way through it. One nice thing about poplar is, like a grass, once you plant it and harvest it, it will just regrow on its own. You don't need to plant it more than once. I think it can be harvested just once per year. I'm not 100% sure on that. I guess we'll see how fast it grows. It can be planted throughout the year, and it looks like it can also be harvested literally the entire year. So August actually is the last month that you can plant it, but as I said, it can be harvested all year long. Just harvest it whenever you want. As I mentioned, this is most definitely my first time ever farming this. I kind of forget that poplar's even in the game. Oilseed, radish, and poplar are definitely the ones I think about the least on this list and forget all the time that they even exist. But hey, here we go, man. I'm not sure how this exactly lines up here. It's only like a 1 meter work width and it goes really slow. So I'll just get it on the edge of the field here, turn her on, and it just kind of plants them every once in a while. I'll probably miss some of the field with this, but you know, I'm not too worried about that. Drives pretty slow, as I said, but you can see things are being planted behind me. So our second little line of poplar trees here. I don't really know how the spacing is supposed to work here, but this looks fine enough to me. I did end up having to see some sort of like how you even farm this, and it does look like when you harvest it, you also drive over it, kind of like this. You know, you put your tractor right down the middle, and you actually end up driving over the poplar and hitting them with a little harvester in the back. The other alternative is that forage wagon that you just ride over, and it kind of shoots wood chips into a trailer behind. I think when I'll harvest this, I'll go for the bales, but who knows, maybe I'll just get a little forage harvester too, just to kind of show that off, see how things look. You know, it's a new product for me. I feel like this is probably the first time a lot of you have seen this as well. Probably not the most riveting of crops in the game, but hey, it is one of the 16, man, so I got to farm it, you know? It's okay, poplar, even if no one else wants to farm you, I'll do it. I'll do it. Just a man planting his saplings. The spacing, I already apologize for. It's gonna be bad. I think it fixes right here, but it's a little offset. Very strange planting operation, very strange product. I don't even really know how well poplar sells, aka like wood chips, once you cut it all down and mulch it up. You know, this is significantly higher than I thought wood chips would go for. I do know wood or lumber actually does sell really well. You can make a lot of money doing it, especially once you put it through to like make planks or something like that. I mean, look at those prices. There's some good money there. It is just one of those extremely manual processes. I have very little experience doing it though. I have to admit, maybe that should be something I consider doing one of these days. Spending a couple of years making a cool lumber farm would be pretty awesome, I have to admit. Maybe I'll check it out before Farming Sim 22 is over. And hey, if I got a use for wood chips, I know how to farm these now, so I got that going for me. while I have a sec while we're driving around here, if you haven't seen my potato farming video and you do want to check out the horrors of spending 5 whole years farming nothing but potatoes, a little bit of sunflowers in there too, but gotta make french fries, man. But yeah, if you want to see those horrors, check it out. It is on my channel. I'll try to put a little link somewhere on the screen for you to click. Check it out. It is a good one if you want to binge watch. It's a couple hours long, but yeah, check it out. Appreciate y'all. Now boys, if you could not tell, I am really bored doing this. This is not the most exciting crop, poplar. Maybe there's a reason no one talks about poplar. That's all I'm saying. All right, I think the time might be to cut when we are nearly done. This might be a farmhand job, in fact. Oh boy, yeah, poplar. Been at this for a while. It has taken quite some time. Whew, and as I said, this is one of the smallest fields in my possession. It is only like a 3-acre field or so, but we are reaching the end here with a whole field of poplar. Might be the last time I plant poplar. We shall see. It is nice, I have to admit, once you get it in the ground like this, it is set to go forever. Seems like it doesn't eat up a lot of seeds either. We're not even half empty on one box, and it was only like 28 bucks for this whole thing. So yeah, we'll see what kind of profits we get here. Typically, the more annoying the crop is to farm, the more money it is worth at the end. Looks at potatoes. Either way, field complete. I have to admit, the poplar lines do look pretty cool. And like I said, it's cool. I don't need to go run it back with this planter again. I do have a feeling the harvester is not going to be much faster. It only does it 1 row at a time as well. But I'll have to see. I've never done it before. I have no idea. See y'all for the next crop on the list. All right, while poplar is definitely an adventure in itself, I have to say I'm happy to be moving on to a slightly more normal crop. Definitely a very simple one. Uses a lot of the standard equipment you might have laying around your farm. This is the last one of August, and it is a staple of most people's first plant in Farming Sim 22 on a fresh world. I'm of course talking about canola. The working width on this right after poplar is just wow, it is crazy different. The funniest part is this is a significantly bigger field, but I already know this is going to take way quicker. Canola has a lot of benefits. It is very simple. Whenever you start a new farming sim world, you do start in August, as I mentioned. Canola can be planted right away. It is extremely straightforward. I think I've said that about 3 times now. You can use the standard seeder here to plant it that you can use to plant a lot of things, obviously, because I've used it for 3 different crops now today. On top of that, it uses the standard header on combines to pick up, and the production is very, very straightforward as well. Harvest it and take it off to the oil mill and turn it into canola oil. Since it can be planted in August and it's using that kind of standard grain tooling, I think it is one of those that is just a staple for a lot of farmers, especially brand new farmers. For when they first pick up the game, they're looking to use all that classic farming equipment like a seeder like this one, and then a big harvester later in the year. So they plant something that is easy to wrap their mind around, and that is typically canola. I like it for its simplicity, the fact that it can be refined further, but in a very easy to understand way. But unfortunately, the closer you look, the worse of a crop canola starts to appear to be. Now, while it is very, very simple, I think the biggest knock against canola is just how long it takes to grow. It takes a whopping 11 months to fully grow. You plant it in August and you aren't harvesting it until the following summer. Now, with that long of a grow time, you might think that it is going to be a pretty high yielding one, give you a lot of money for taking up that much time, but that's where you're wrong. It actually is somewhat of a low yield, especially for having the longest growing time in the entire game. You just aren't going to get a lot of product at the end of all this. And speaking of product, the production chain of oil mill is actually pretty rough. It has a really low capacity and an extremely slow work time. Because of that, there's a few things working against canola. From just a perspective of trying to maximize your fields, get profit, you know, kind of starting on one of those harder difficulties, aka not on a farm where you have 15 fields and $3 million. On one of those, it can be really devastating to farm that for multiple years in a row and just really not see much profit whatsoever. All that being said, its simplicity does make it one of those really easy ones to get into, and if you're not worried about completely min-maxing your profits, it can be pretty fun. Good starter crop, very simple. Ain't nothing wrong with something that's nice and simple to plant and wrap your head around. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just want to drag this classic farming equipment up and down the field and just get a little bit of crop out of it. It is a fun one to farm, so I can't knock it too much, but it's hard not to think about how the fields could be used better while you're farming it, I have to admit. And I'll still somehow miss rows, don't you worry about that, while I'm planting, trying to make Erlengrat as pretty as possible and utterly failing. Luckily, it is very pretty without my help. Look at that train going on the bridge. Beautiful. It is always kind of funny while you're planting canola to realize that you aren't going to be coming back to this field for close to another year. Regardless though, having a good time planting these. I hope you guys are enjoying thus far. It's kind of fun seeing a lot of these crops, even the more common ones like canola. Regardless though, I am just going to do a few more down and backs here, get this all planted up, and that should wrap her up for August. And there we go. Canola in the ground. I'll see you next year, Mr. Field. Trying to figure out what the best way to get back here is. I just don't even know. We'll go this way. Sure, that seems good. So our next planting should be this next month. We got a couple of the grains ready to be planted. Other ones that take quite a lot of time to grow. I will get all of our equipment back to the farm and put away. I'm going to be cutting across this field a lot. That's all I'm going to say. Hope they don't care. All right, see y'all next month. Good morning, farmers. With it being September here at 7:30 in the morning, cloudy, foggy day in the Alps. With it being September, we have moved on to some new planting seasons. We're gonna hook up old Blue here since we got some more grains to put in the ground. Giving it away but September is the month of the grain. We're planting both wheat and barley today. I got the planter all hooked up. I'm getting down to the fields and we are gonna start with good old wheat. Driving down here, and before we get started, you can see last month we got our 2 grass fields, we got our oilseed radish field, canola field, and poplar field. Canola already growing here on the right, just planted last month, and it is going to take a while for that stuff to get ready to harvest. But we aren't talking about no canola today. We are focusing on good old wheat. So wheat is just another one of those good old staple crops. Very easy, very simple, just like all the other grains. Just like canola, it does have the variable seed rate, and it would appear that we have a pretty unfriendly field for seeding wheat. But that's just precision farming though. Wheat obviously has a lot going for it here. Just like with canola, there are always bonus points for just being a very simple and easy crop to maintain. All of the tools that you use to tend to it, you can use on a lot of different things. These seeders can be used for like 6 or 7 different crops. Same with the combine headers that you use to harvest these. And wheat is the first one that I have farmed thus far on my farm here that drops straw. And straw definitely has a lot of benefits. One of the big uses of straw is actually for your animals. You can use it for bedding with your cows, and it will give you manure. It will like change around. Instead of getting slurry, you'll get some manure. That can be very helpful if you have manure spreaders. You can just use that as your fertilizer. Main takeaway though for straw is that it is just one of those things that adds on profit to a crop outside of, just selling that crop raw or producing it further. And speaking of animals, wheat is one of the 3 things that chickens can eat. A very popular method of farming in FS22 to be nice and efficient. One of the more popular ways of farming is using animals, cow and chicken, and then combining that with one of these grains like wheat that drop straw and can also be fed to the chicken. They kind of all feed into each other. You can use the straw for the cows, obviously. You can use the wheat itself to feed the chickens. And then the wheat itself can obviously be sent off to be made into flour. And that flour actually can recombine with the 2 previous products from cows and chickens to make cakes eventually, which is one of the most complicated but highest yielding productions pretty much at the end of the game. Requires a lot of previous productions and everything like that, but it's a cool goal to aim for, and that's a pretty popular way to go about it. Point being, wheat is one of those ones where it kind of has synergy if that's what you're building towards. As I mentioned with the productions, the production for wheat is pretty simple. It's one of the grains that can be sent up to the grain mill to be made into flour, and then that flour can go to the bakery to then either just make bread, which is a very simple production, just flour and then bread, and yeah, makes a decent chunk of change. I do think wheat is pretty solid. It is a mainstay, very simple crop that has a lot of different uses. Just like some of the other crops that I've talked about already, though, it obviously has some downsides. It is one of the slowest growing crops in the game. Canola takes the cake at 12 months, but wheat is not that quick either. It does take a solid 10 months to get to harvest season. So it's one of those that, you know, you're never going to be able to rotate. You're just going to have a field dedicated to that wheat. So even though, you know, it does drop that straw, it can kind of be a blessing and a curse, because with it dropping that straw, that's kind of like some of its value baked in. So if you don't have a good use for the straw, or just like a good way to collect it and you just leave it on the field, wheat on its own is really bad sell price and yield. It just doesn't make very much money. And while I do like the flour mill into bakery production chain, it actually really does not make that much money unless you go into cake. It's a very easy one to start with, very easy production. You know, I like the one ingredient type of productions where you just stick it in there, it makes something, and you sell it. This just takes it one step further by adding in the bakery right after that, but it's still just one ingredient throughout. You put the wheat in, it turns into flour, goes right onto bread. The problem is bread really doesn't sell very well. It really doesn't add like a good modifier onto the value of what you stick in there. Not the best production, but very simple and easy, and can be fun to get into. I do like making bread. The other thing is, anything that requires 2 different production points is generally going to be really slow to make it through all your products. So I harvest up this field, get all my wheat, take it on over to the grain mill. It takes, you know, a good 6 months to fully process into flour, and the whole time I'm sending the flour over to the bakery, right, it gets backed up. I have a bunch of extra flour, and it's just like, you know, it's going to take another year before I even get through my harvest. Lots of the productions are pretty slow in farming sim, but that is just one of the unfortunate downsides of having like a 2-step process where you got to send it to one place and then you got to send it to another place, on top of bread also just being like low profit wise. So takes a long time, doesn't make a lot of money, just unfortunate. Still can be fun, but you know, just looking at it from a profit potential point of view, which is kind of what I've been doing with all these different crops, as we have just a brief look at them, it is definitely not the best. I kind of designated these fields right here, maybe those ones further up over there too. We'll kind of make this the little like grain alley. You know, we put in all our grains right here. Canola is like an honorary grain, not quite one, but you use all the same equipment to farm it too. We put more of the weird ones up there with Poplar and Oilseed, Radish, and stuff like that. But yeah, look at that, all done with wheat. Now, just moving all the way over to this field right here, we're getting started on the grain that's very similar to wheat, but in my opinion, very slightly better, and that's barley. Now, as you might imagine, barley extremely similar to wheat. You plant them in the same month, they're both grains, they both drop straw, really similar stuff. Now, one thing I do like about barley more than wheat is it actually is quicker to grow. It only takes 9 months instead of 10 months, so you get another month in there, and it is possible to maybe sneak in like a ready to harvest one grass rotation in there, so it is not completely impossible to be rotated, but it is not a good rotational crop. However, on top of being a faster growing one, it actually has a higher yield than wheat. Now, while the sale prices might kind of even things out, with the amount that you get and the fact that it has a pretty good modifier when being made into flour and bread, I think it might be just about the best grain depending on how you're looking at things. If you want to make bread and you can use the straw and everything, it is a really good one. Now, like wheat, it does have some of the drawbacks. Like you more or less have to collect all the straw to maximize the profit potential there. The production still isn't like fantastic if it's being made into bread, but I do like it just a bit more because of that higher yield and the fact that it's pretty good for being made into bread. I think it's near about my favorite for that little combo that I was talking about, where you can feed it to chickens, you can get the straw for cows, and then you can use it for flour, and then all three of those feed into making cake. Also, while we're planting here, I do have a little farmhand working down there. He is just fertilizing the field we just planted. That is going to be something I do for all of these fields after I plant them. Want to just increase the yield a little bit, and it's pretty quick to just have it going on in the background while I am planting these. Regardless though, this will probably look right around how you think it's gonna look, considering it is also a grain, and we literally just got done planting that one over there. I'm missing spots left and right, as I'm sure you can see. That's just classic stuff from me. Since we know what this really does look like from start to finish, I will just knock out the rest of this field while my trusty farmhand over there on the bureau fertilizes. So yeah, see y'all in a bit. November in year one, and it is time to actually do our very first harvesting. Kind of what you'd expect. I mean, I'm grabbing the mower. I think you can figure out what crop is the very first time to be harvested here. I do have one or two other small little mowers hanging around, but we're just gonna start with this boy. So our grass fields are just right down here, just planted them a few months ago. Got that grain all covered in the last time we were riding around the farm here. It's all growing down here. You can see wheat right here, barley right here, and that canola earlier this year right here. So with this weird sideways on the side mower, we're cutting this here grass. This mower can go pretty fast at 14 miles per hour. It really won't take too long to get everything covered. The biggest thing with harvesting grass, at least in the base game regular version of Farming Sim, is it has two growth states for ready to harvest. It will show up as ready to harvest after, I believe it's 2 months, but the thing is, there are actually two different states, like I said. If you wait for that second one, like 1 more month after it initially says that it is ready to harvest, you will get like a 50% yield bonus, and it visually changes color as well. So you can see this grass is kind of like a long yellow, a little bit yellow at the top, pretty tall. With ready to harvest 1, it is much shorter and way more green, but it will say ready to harvest. That's honestly one of my least favorite parts of grass farming in this game, is that secret knowledge, but it's like a huge yield bonus for getting it right. I kind of wish they just made it not say ready to harvest until the second one, so you don't accidentally cut it early, or just have it be a bit cleaner than it is right now. Regardless though, this is as basic as farming gets. You grow the grass. It takes just 3 months or so. I believe I planted this in August and it is ready to go in November. And just trim it on down. Nothing too complex here. We obviously have our second field of grass right here. I can hop on that one right after this, maybe get another tractor moving, but I'm actually having fun with the sideways mower. It's a little different than the classic 2-piece mowers that can make a windrow in one go. I'll just keep it small. I'm not going to use any of those this time. If you want to see footage of those, I have an abundance of it in Broke to Billionaire. Pretty much mowed with nothing but that stuff, so it's honestly kind of nice to just be using something different, and especially with this little tractor, I'm flying, I'm cruising. One other thing about harvesting grass here is you technically don't need it on a field. The yield that you get from a prepared and fertilized field of grass is going to be a lot higher than this meadow grass, kind of just growing on this little field over here. I do own this little portion right here, so I can just mow that as well. And you see I kind of dipped into it a few times. So that is one nice part. Everything that you can do with grass growing on your field, you can do the same thing with meadow grass. It's just slightly lower yielding for how much space it takes. But you also don't have to do anything besides the harvest itself. Whenever you harvest your grass, you might as well just mow your meadow grass too if you care about that sort of thing. So it's pretty easy once you get moving and grooving here. Even a little mower like this one can make pretty quick work of a field. Obviously I'm missing a few strips here and there. I'll go back and grab them here in a bit, but just kind of keeping to my down and backs for now. So hired me a farmhand to keep mowing here because we got some more mowers to bring out to the field. Now brother, it just ain't a complete day unless you're using this bad boy. Oh man. So yeah, we could walk this thing down there, I suppose. Moves a little slow. I don't even know if I want to do this, but I think it's pretty funny, so I think I'm gonna. Probably a better idea to put it in the back of the truck though, so one moment. All right, maybe not the safest looking thing in the world in the back, but it works. Who needs a low loader, man? I really don't think this is gonna be super helpful, but it's gonna look pretty funny, so I gotta use it. All right, let's see how this looks, huh? Oh, is it stuck? Is it stuck? Oh yeah, it's for sure stuck. Oh, maybe. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, let's get mowing, boys. I really don't think this was made to mow a field of this size, but here we are. Here we go. Handles about as well as you think it would. Oh man, imagine you were looking at this field and you had this mower. But it's doing the job. It is cutting. This is definitely one of those little mowers that's more for maybe your backyard rather than a 6-acre field of prepared grass. But it looks pretty funny. Can we put like a worker on this? Let's see. Oh man, look at this. This is hilarious. He's not even holding the handles either. I hired a guy to do this. Just some random guy. Oh man, poor guy. He's got a little bit of a task ahead of him here. Look at this. Look at this. That is hilarious. All right, only because I don't want to see that man suffer and work on something for 6 hours, and because we already have one of these little tiny mowers in the front, decided to get myself another one of those side mowers that I already have. Hey, still just small little mowers, and none of them are very expensive. I do want to showcase both hay and silage, so we're going to be doing both of those as well. We're going to bale up both of them. I think we're just going to be using a standard little round bale for the silage, and maybe do, if we have the horsepower for it, some square bales of hay. Now I'm just trying to locate this gentleman. How much progress do you think he's made here? Oh, I see him way over there. Look at this guy go. Man, what a trooper. I think we will end this man's pain and suffering. Get this moved out the way. So got a farmhand starting over there, have that little mower just kind of sitting there in the middle of everything. I'll take this over, clean things up. Should be a quick little mow. Like operating the side one, and something just feels right about riding in this open air tractor, man. Getting just a little bit of the fresh air exhaust pipe right in my face, so questionable how fresh the air really is. But yeah, it is beautiful out. A beautiful fall day in November as we're cutting the grass. Finished up mowing up the first field of grass. Our farmhand over there still working on the second one. Figure it's a good a time as any to get the tedding and windrowing going. I think I'll make the smaller field into a nice hay field and the bigger one into silage. Have a nice windrower and tedder right there. The tedder is very nice because it's right around 100 horsepower, so this tractor will be able to run that too. The windrower is just a skosh more, so I will get the nice cloths over there ready to roll for some windrowing once the tedding is done. So tedders are pretty interesting. Hay in general is an interesting product. It can be very, very useful for animals. Obviously, you use it to feed sheep. It can be fed to cows as well, and it is used in the TMR recipe for getting the most efficiency out of your cow. The biggest downside I think of hay in general and using a tedder is if you use one of those nice mowers that does put a field into windrows already. Obviously I didn't use one of those, so that's why it's all kind of scattered out. The tedder will mess it up, so you pretty much always have to use a windrower if you're making hay. Just adds another, pass on your field that you don't necessarily need to make. I've always found it kind of annoying, and especially when you compare it to the profit potential of silage. It is kind of a no contest. It is just way easier, quicker, and makes a lot more money to do silage. But hay still definitely has its uses. I don't want to hate on it too much, and we're making some here right now. I have to admit, a tedder is just one of those pieces of equipment that looks very cool while you're using it. I like how it kind of makes that cloud, splays out the grass everywhere. One major difference between Farming Simulator and real life when it comes to hay is a lot of hay fields, when the farmer wants to make them, they don't use a tedder. They just drop the grass into windrows while mowing it, and then after that they do it on, you know, kind of dry season, so they can just leave the grass on the field and it'll dry out on its own. You don't need to run over it with a tedder and spray the grass everywhere and everything like that. That's something maybe not super well represented in Farming Sim, since this is literally the only way to make hay, but it is still fun. I like using a tedder sometimes. When I don't care about running a tractor over the field another time. This isn't a super big field, so it's not too big of a deal. On the very final pass of tedding here, just turning this little line here into hay, we got the Claas tractor over there with a Claas windrower as well. He is ready to go on this as soon as it is done. Got to admit, I do love windrowing. I like how it looks as an end result. I like the tools, they're nice and big. The only thing is, it is an avoidable thing to do just by buying certain mowers, so I end up not doing it that much, but it is a pretty cool little thing to do. Something very satisfying about just driving through your field and making these lines, picking them up with a baler afterwards. So just gonna take a few passes here. I'm gonna go down and back, get these windrows going. Probably windrow up this field over here as well. Get everything prepped for baling. We'll have two different balers going at the same time. We're gonna do square bales on this field, and I think round bales on this field. We'll see. Just to differentiate it a little bit, you know. But yeah, I'll see you guys when we got some beautiful windrows. Okay, we got two beautiful fields of windrows here and a nice little baler here being pulled by the Claas. On the left, we just have grass windrows, and on the right there is hay. Now, this baler is one of those that can wrap as well as bale it all up, so it is an all-in-one silage machine. Now, these things work by just baling this grass on up. They spit it out the back and then just wrap it up real quick. This is just a little round baler. Those are the only ones in the base game of FS22, at least, that can do this auto wrap functionality. You do have to stop when it like is spitting out the bale, but once it's on the back wrapping up, you can keep driving. You can even turn on automatic drop there, and look at that little marshmallow. Did put a farmhand on this. This actually isn't something you can do in the base game. I'm using Courseplay just for a little, you know, quality of life type mod, and they are very good at doing that little stop and drop. So I am gonna let this AI process the rest of it while I get the other baler all hooked up. So this big boy, a nice big square baler, you can see it's a little heftier. These guys are really nice because they are just continuous. You never have to stop. So I will get picking up this hay. Some of these big old piles of hay are kind of interesting to get through. Gonna need to make sure to grab all that off the field. Maybe I'll even double back. There was just so much of it, the baler couldn't even pick it up. You can see how little we've gone into this course, and it's almost already filled a whole bale. But these things are really great. They just shoot that bale out the back. As you can see, it's kind of poking out a little bit. And then as you create new ones, they just kind of push the old ones out and onto the ground. So you don't need to have like automatic drop or anything off, because they're gonna automatic drop for you, man. So the two balers working side by side. I think between the two of them, I definitely prefer the square baler like this one rather than the round baler. Only issue being, if you're doing silage specifically, which is the big money earner with grass, you gotta end up using a wrapper as well, which is not the end of the world, but it definitely just makes things go a bit slower because you have more equipment you gotta run across the field. But yeah, I mean, this is how it would look. From start to finish. You really just end up storing the bales after putting them all out here. I mean, you could even leave them on the field if you want to. But yeah, grass, easy start to finish. I guess the one thing that I forgot to mention about silage bales over there specifically is they do need time to ferment. While this hay that I am making into bales here, that can be used right away. Like I could go use that to feed my animals. I could use it in TMR, whatever. The silage bales over there, silage needs time to ferment. I think in the base game it takes like 3 months or something like that to ferment. Yeah, I'll get the rest of these bales spit out, get them out on the ground. I'll go back over all the spots that I have missed because I keep turning my camera sideways. But I mean, look at them bales there sitting out all over the place. So many nice silage bales over there looking like marshmallows. Delicious, the return of marshmallow bales. So I hired a couple of AI. I can actually show off what this bale loading looks like right away. These are my favorite to use. There's a few different ways to move bales around. You can get a bale fork and just use it with, you can get a nice bale fork, put it on a front loader on a tractor. This is the way to do it, in my opinion. If you're gonna do bales, just spring a little bit more. This one, especially for round bales, is not very expensive because if you see, it just makes it real easy, scoops them on up, and yeah, just like that. I believe this one can hold like 20 bales, something like that. From here, you could, you know, let these ferment, sell them as is. The silage is worth a ton of money, but I think that near about does it for grass. You guys get the idea. I'll let these play out, you know, get everything all baled up and whatnot. Oh, I already forgot about that, man. But yeah, that's grass. Hope y'all enjoyed. We can move right along to the next crop. So just when y'all thought that November was behind us, that baling's still happening behind me here, but we are going up to our oilseed radish field. So you can see this stuff kind of just like growing on top, and if you can see in the bottom right there, the precision farming, it says the nitrogen is perfect. This is a pretty good way to fertilize a field, I have to admit. It might not mean it's perfect for whatever crop you put in, but I have a nice disc harrow here, and what you can do with these fields is just rip it up. You just drop down your cultivator, your disc harrow, whatever, and you just cultivate it. That's it. It's really pretty simple, and you can see right here the nitrogen is good. It upped it from the last time we were here. It kind of just mixes in that oilseed radish to the field. Pretty straightforward, honestly. I mean, like I said, this is barely even a crop, oilseed radish. It's just an alternate means of fertilizing, but I just thought I'd show you guys, and it's technically one of those crops, one of those 16. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I don't really feel the need to cultivate this whole thing unless I decide to plant something here later. So oilseed radish also in the done column, and I do believe our next crop is a planted one, and it isn't going to be until February, so gonna be a little bit of a fast forward period here, but I'll just get back to you guys once we're back to planting. I got some equipment to put away and some bales to finish baling. So I will see you all in February. Well, howdy farmers. It has been quite a few months. We are here in a very chilly 35-degree day out in February. It's a little later in the day. There was a bunch of snow, but let it melt down just a little bit to make it so we can get planting. It does look like there is snow on the forecast for later today, so I am going to get this planter all hooked up and get going. So as some of you might be able to guess from the time of year that it is, and also the planter that I have on the back being a row crop planter, it is time for one of my favorite crops. We are planting some cotton today. Decided to pick one of the prettiest little plots I have right here, right next to town. This is one of those cool planters where it has like 2 different join points. It has a point that you can kind of put it in like transport mode in the front, and then a point where you grab it for planting right there. Get it all folded out and ready for planting. So as I mentioned, cotton is actually one of my favorite and what I consider one of the best crops in the game. It can make a ton of money, both on its own or through productions. You can put it through a fairly simple production where you just take the bales up to the spinnery. They can be made into fabric, and then that fabric can be sent to a tailoring shop to be made into clothes. Those clothes have a huge sell price. Like they make crazy profit. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons beyond just all the profit potential is dealing with the gigantic bales is just so funny. When you pick all the cotton, it drops these gigantic bales on the field, especially the square ones. Those ones are really funny, just because it's just literally a gigantic block of cotton, and we'll see that a little more in harvest season later this year. They're just so funny. I don't know, I really like farming them just for that reason alone. I think the main reason that cotton can be kind of off-putting, especially to newer farmers, is some of the equipment specifically for harvesting and transporting. It has to be very specialized. Like, you can't use the generic harvesting equipment for that. It doesn't use a regular combine or anything like that. It is its own specialized combine, and it's very expensive. The cheapest one in the base game is somewhere like $400,000 or $500,000. There's only two of them. One of them is that $500,000, and the other one's like $700,000. I would pretty much always suggest getting the one that costs about $500,000. I personally like dealing with the round bales a bit more. Just some of the equipment for picking them up and everything works a bit better. For an extra like $300,000 to $400,000 in the base game, it's just not worth it. The one thing you do have to keep in mind when you consider those costs is, with how big of a profit potential there is, you actually do make your money back pretty quickly. So I think it's one that everybody should at least try out, because I think it's kind of underappreciated, underused. It's one of those I feel like I consider doing in every single save now, just because of how fun it is to farm and how much money it makes. There is something just very satisfying about using a row crop planter as well. I love the lines it draws down as it puts them in. I just really like the symmetry, how it, alternates between a line of crops and a line of the field there, the mud. It's just very aesthetically pleasing to look at from a farming standpoint. But I think it might be time to just get all these cotton seeds into this field, get it all planted. We'll see you guys closer to the end of it. Just wrapped up here and got us a nice lovely field of cotton. On to the next crop, man. Happy March, farmers. So we are officially into planting season proper. It is going to be a very busy day, lots of crops on the docket for planting, but we should get the last of our crops planted today and tomorrow, and that'll do it for planting. We have a pretty good mix of crops today, gonna be using both planters, but our first one up is a crop that I know and love. A grain that might just be the best grain, depending on what you're doing. I am talking, of course, about oats. So, I mean, oats kind of follow the same path as the other grains. They're really nice because all the tools can be used for all of them, and multiple other crops as well. Very standard seeder operation here, and then with the harvester you can use the kind of general purpose grain header to harvest all of them, and oat falls right into that. Just like a barley and wheat, oat also drops straw, which is really nice, and I'd say it's probably the easiest source of straw considering some of the other factors about it. Oat has just about the shortest grow time in the entire game, discounting, maybe grass or oilseed radish, some of those other ones that kind of are in their own category, But you look here at the calendar, oat can be planted in March and then harvested in July. So a 4-month grow time is just like crazy when you consider what else you can do with those fields. If you're into crop rotation, I think oat might just be about the best regular crop, standard grain or so. It is the best crop for rotating, or one of them. It does have a couple downsides, just like all the others. Its yield is pretty low, as you might imagine. With only a 4-month grow time, you don't get a ton of profit just from raw oat, and just like the other grains, it does need to go through the grain mill and also be made into bread or cake for those maximized profits. That isn't like the best production chain in terms of profit potential, but So just like barley and wheat though, I did mention this does drop straw, and if you compare nearly a year of grow time for both those previous grains compared to 4 months for oat, this is by far the best way to get straw. A really common one, and what I used on Broke to Billionaire, is rotating oat with grass. In the spring, you can just plant a nice oat field, get it harvested over the summer, and then plant grass, and you'll actually get 2 harvests out of that. So just depending on what you want to do though, it does need to have all the straw be collected for those profits. It's not extremely high profit yielding on its own, as I mentioned. So it does lend itself to needing a lot of work, but if that's the kind of thing you're looking for and just maximizing your field to its utmost potential, you might want to look into oat, man. It is fantastic. So because we have a lot to plant today, with it being March and all that, I went ahead and got a farmhand working on the rest of this one. But you guys know what grain planting looks like at this point. It's me going up and down with this nice blue seeder and getting all that oat in the ground. On to the next crop. So this next crop is actually near and dear to my heart. It is another row crop, and I just got done farming quite a lot of this on a certain potato farm just to make French fries, and we need to make oil. And what kind of oil did we need? We needed sunflowers, man. So I don't know if they're the best crop or anything like that. They definitely have their downsides, like an extremely low yield, but I actually really like sunflowers. So as you guys know from that cotton planting, I do like my row crops, just how they look aesthetically. And I don't think any crop looks better aesthetically than sunflower, especially when it's in its growing phase, kind of in the middle of summer, and you get all those, you know, big, huge sunflowers out in a field. You cover a giant field in those, and it is just really, really pretty. Now the downside is once you harvest them, they are just like brown and dead and ugly. One of the coolest aspects of sunflowers in the base game is the fact that they actually have a specialized header. While you can definitely just use the corn header, and obviously we'll get to that a little later, the corn header generally can be used for both sunflower and corn. It's just those two, but you know, very useful that it can be used for both. So, but sunflower actually at a few different sizes has a specialized header that only harvests sunflower, and in the base game at least, that is by far the fastest header in the game. It goes 9 miles per hour. Pretty much every other header in the base game goes 6 miles per hour. Now 3 miles per hour might not seem that big of a difference, but when you're going across a field for a good half an hour, it's actually like a 30%, you know, increase in your harvesting speed. So just imagine that your header was 30% wider. That would be huge, and that's essentially what you're getting with the sunflower header there. So it really just flies through fields when you get it harvesting, especially compared to all your other harvesters. Sunflower is one of those classic plants in the spring, harvest in the fall crops, so you can rotate it with grass. You might not get a full ready to harvest 2 crop out of it, but you know, you can still rotate it if you really want to. And this field is going to just look awesome. I like this little area right here. I do believe I'm going to put corn right there to kind of keep the row crops together. But this will be a pretty little area with cotton, corn, and sunflowers all right next to each other. So we're getting pretty close to being done with planting here. It does look like our oat that I had our farmhand working on over there did finish up. So I am going to go ahead and get right into the next crop. As I said, very busy March, but this has been sunflowers, man, one of my favorites. So this next crop does require a special planter, and I gotta tell you, I'm not excited for this one. It's what I'm very familiar with. I recently just spent 5 years in game farming this, and almost solely this, covering an entire 4 times map in potatoes, and that is what it is as we round the corner here to the vehicle store. I see a planter I have used quite a lot, but yeah, it is potato time, unfortunately. Oh man, I thought I wouldn't have to plant potatoes again for a while, but here we are. So it is nice that you can actually use potatoes to fill up your planter after harvesting and use them for your next plant, but we obviously don't have that luxury. We're planting for the first and only time on this field, and just look how many seeds this eats through. Potatoes are actually one of the highest like consumption of seeds, well, regular seeds, while you're planting them. Obviously, you know, you can reuse them. They'll grow into those potatoes and you can just put them right back into the ground. They'll grow more, but this is just ridiculous. You need so many just to even fill this up. I am picking one of my smallest fields for this because I have felt the pain of potatoes enough. I have 2 tiny 3-acre fields here, and guess what? One of them is becoming potatoes. That's just what's gonna happen, man. I guess a good time as any to shout out I did make a video recently. It's of me taking an entire map, a modded map called the Iowa Plains map. I buy every single field on the entire map, and I'm covering it with potatoes. That's the goal. It is a 4 times map, so this field is 1 times. Just imagine 4 of those. That's a 4 times map. And that's for every field in the game, so it actually is a huge map. I definitely should have picked a smaller one, but it was fun. Potato farming, especially the harvesting, honestly, is such a pain, especially in the base game. Feel free to go check that out. I'll try to put a link there on the screen, but very proud of my work there. I do enjoy that video quite a lot and how it turned out. Hope you guys are enjoying this one as well, as I put myself through the torture of yet another potato plant. But yeah, here we are again. 7 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour, 6-meter work width, and this is actually the better of the two. The harvester is even skinnier and goes just about the same speed, and it is just pain. So that is why we are going for one of these nice small fields. So, I mean, what is there to say about potatoes? It has to be the worst crop in the game. I don't know what is more annoying to farm in the base game than potatoes. Maybe some of the vine crops that are actually coming up very soon here. Those are the only ones I can think of that have like the potential to be more annoying. But this has to be the most tedious, worst crop in the game. Now the upsides are it does make a ton of money. As I learned in my series I've pitched a couple times here. Potatoes have like an insanely high sale rate. The yield is crazy. When you harvest them, you get a ton of potatoes, which is almost kind of a detriment because you have to unload that harvester so many times while harvesting. It is obnoxious. You'll let it run for like maybe a minute and it's already full again. It's crazy. So you are not going to be at a loss of money if you're potato farming. In the base game, potatoes don't have a production either. Productions were a pretty major selling point of Farming Sim 22, and they have a lot of profit potential behind them. That's how you end up making some of the most money in the entire game, is just producing your products, putting your crops in and turning them into stuff that just make more money. They just didn't even put any in for potatoes. I swear potatoes are like giant softwares like Most Hated Crop or something. Everything in this game, it just works against them besides the high sale price. All of the machinery is awful. In real life, there are plenty of harvesters that are significantly bigger than the ones they put into this game. I mean, granted, those harvesters they have in the game, those are real harvesters. So that definitely exists, and potato farming is just a lot more tedious than some of the other farming operations. But at the same time, there are bigger operations out there. There's bigger machinery. Anywho, I mean, this is just as tedious as it looks. This is true pain. I think I have received enough potato torture for a lifetime in this game. I genuinely hope that they make it better in future games, but just something about it makes me think that they won't. I guess we'll see. Maybe Farming Sim 25 will be better, but for now it is torturous. So a farmhand will be taking this over for me. I'm good on planting for a lifetime. On to the next crop, which is also yet another root crop. And we are back using the row crop planter. I actually forgot that this crop, which as you guys might have guessed as I wrap myself around a pole, it is sugar beets. We are going to just plant it here right next to potatoes. I think there are more tedious crops to farm than this one. I mean, obviously there's potatoes, but I'll just keep the root crops kind of together in this little corner over here. Why not? Sugar beets actually are kind of what you would hope like potatoes could be. They're a lot less tedious to farm. The harvester operations are pretty slow, just like potatoes, very tedious. But sugar beets here are actually a lot easier to plant than potatoes because they use this generic planter that you can use for all your row crops. That means that they have a much higher working width than potatoes. The harvesters in general are like a little bit bigger than potatoes as well. And by a little bit, I mean like more than double. They're usually like, I don't know, at least 6 meters wide, whereas potatoes like 3. It's crazy how small potato harvesters really are with their headers. On top of that, sugar beets have a lot more uses than potatoes. They're used in multiple productions. Biggest productions are obviously being made into sugar. Sugar itself can go into multiple other products. It can be made into chocolate, it can be used in cereal production, and it can be used in the cake. So it's definitely a very useful one to have from the production standpoint, especially if you want to go for that nice cake goal that I mentioned. That's one that is just, it's a fun goal to aim for because it requires so many different crops, so many different productions. On top of that, you can use it in the biogas plant, which is, you know, technically a production, and that makes a lot of money. You can chop up your sugar beets and you can feed that directly to the biogas, and that's just easy income. The biogas is awesome. Definitely still a pain to harvest. That's probably the biggest pain point. Big expensive harvesters that are somewhat slow compared to the other ones and take a long time. So as I sit here raving about sugar beets, this poor man over there still planting potatoes. The root crop alley takes no prisoners. It is brutal out here. I'll take a bit, just get this all planted. I'm obviously gonna finish up before that poor sap over there, but yeah, we'll get this all covered, man. So teased it just a little bit during planting all those sugar beets, but our next crop here on the list is actually going to be sugarcane. This will be my first time ever planting and harvesting sugarcane. I haven't done it or any of the ones that are on the vines. Now, sugarcane is not one of those. It is a little bit different, but it does use one of these row planters that specifically only does sugarcane. So with sugarcane, there are 2 different planters. There is a single row, single billet planter for it and a 2-row planter. I went with the 2-row. Does seem like a pretty slow crop to manage there. What is cool about sugarcane is kind of like potatoes, you can actually feed sugarcane right back into the planters, and you can also buy pallets of it for using with your planter, and it is considerably less expensive to get sugarcane than seeds. So it can hold fertilizer, but it's kind of weird. You have to like pour it straight in here, so it's probably meant to be filled up at one of those fertilizer fill up points, but it's looking pretty full just from that one bag. So first time planting sugarcane here. We're on one of our smaller fields because I get the feeling this is going to be one of those crops that takes a while to plant. It is a very small work width, but we'll get this in the ground. We'll see how bad it is. Update, it is pretty bad. But this is actually going to take us quite a while. It's very slow moving, very small width. Now, I don't know too much about the profit potential for sugarcane, but I have heard that it makes a lot of money. I looked up briefly, and just like sugar beet, it can be used in all those different sugar productions. One thing about Farming Sim is they do reward you for the more tedious things to take care of, like sugar cane here. So even though it is going to take all day to plant even a tiny little field like this with all that sugar cane, you get a lot of money out of it. I'm pretty sure the harvesting is also very small. It can really only do 1 or 2 rows at a time, so it's going to take a while to harvest this field as well. So you can see it's pretty simple. The planter is nice because it can fertilize at the same time as planting the sugarcane. Even buying the sugarcane from the store was very cheap, and it gets even cheaper if you use your own. So not too much more to say about this right now, honestly. I mean, it is my first time touching it ever, but I can just tell this is going to be a very tedious, slow process. Get the rest of this taken care of, likely hire a little farmhand as I work on some other crops. But yeah, that is planting sugarcane. All right, on to the next crop. So this next crop is going to be a little bit of a different one. It's probably some of the most unique crops in all of the base game. We're back up here where we were doing all that grass and hay and silage. I obviously didn't pick up all the bales. I like how they look out on the field, so decided to leave them there. So up here we got a little bit of a longer field, and we are going to be working on grapes and then olives right after that. I'm kind of combining the two because they're both vine crops and they have a unique method of planting and harvesting and all that sort of stuff. So what you actually end up having to do here is in the build menu, you can go to production and then orchards, and you can plant grapevines and olive groves. So what you do is you need to put these down and put them along your field, and then from there you can actually use them as, you know, planting points. So you don't necessarily have to even put them on a field. I don't think they can kind of go anywhere, but I'm just using this field because we have a good amount of them, so we can do one of these, and you can see it gets very expensive very quickly. We'll kind of just put it down there at the end, and then we can just do like a second one kind of like right here. Well, we can put it, man, that is not a straight line at all, is it? Well, we will connect this down here, even if it's not the most straight line, who cares? So we actually have to wait for that to grow. I believe it'll be grown next month. Right now it is March. We can get them planted in April, or, you know, further grown and mulched and fertilized, all that in April. They are technically planted, so it's a little bit of a different process. For grapes and olives down here, we can go through and mulch those next month, and then they can both be harvested in the fall. But yeah, I will see you next month, and we'll just continue with the olives and grapes, just mulching and fertilizing, because they're kind of weird for planting. So technically planted, but we'll just kind of continue that process next month, and I'll see you there. So here again in April, and I actually made a few changes. Instead of those big, long, ugly orchards here, I decided to just make some compact little good looking ones that are a little more square, a little more rectangular. Also just kind of erased my sins because it was very ugly after deleting those orchards. So spent a bit of money there, definitely wasted some on the hyper long orchards, but I learned how to connect them all, and I think they look a lot better, a lot more aesthetically pleasing. Still kind of weird with the field, but whatever, we'll roll with this. And in order to tend these, now that it's April, we have some grass here that needs to be mulched, and these little areas between also need to be cultivated. To do that, we got a specialized little tractor here. It is the Landini Rex 4090 GT. So this little guy is, first off, very funny looking. I mean, it's just so small and skinny, man. He's just a little guy in here, just a little guy. This thing is designed to go between these little orchards. He can squeeze right in there. So first up, kind of hidden in the grass here, we have a little mulcher. It is the perfect size just for going right between these, squeezing on in there. So what you do, the process here is you mulch it, and then you cultivate it, and then you fertilize it. So we can kind of just do one of these. This is the exact same process for both of them. I think they might have slightly different nitrogen values, so the fertilization might look a little bit different. But yeah, it's what you do is you just go up and down each one and get the outside too, just mulch them all. I don't know why I went right down the middle first. Doesn't make too much sense. So in the base game, I don't think this can be automated. I suppose I could come right here and hit H. No, so it doesn't work. However, I believe Courseplay actually can do it. You can actually automate it with Courseplay. PC only, of course, but so if I want an AI to pick it up, I can definitely do that. And I can just mulch right here first and foremost. I mean, we did get the little center part already, but that is okay. So yeah, you just want to go up and down these rows. You just mulch every single one of them. This is my very first time doing any of the vine crops with Farming Simulator 25 so close on the horizon. There's a few crops in 22 that I just haven't messed around with. One of those being the vine crops, also sugarcane. I haven't really done sugar beet either, so it'll just be nice to get all of them and kind of just, you know, think about what ones I like best, what ones I like least, and just kind of do like a retrospective on the whole game. However, I have to admit there is something more intriguing about this vine farming than I originally thought. It's kind of fun driving between all these. It might be fun to have a farm that's like just a nice orchard someday. So grapes can be sent into the grape processing factory to be made into, I think it's juice and not wine, which is kind of funny. It can be made into grape juice, or it can be made into raisins, and raisins can be further processed if you send them on over to the cereal factory. And cereal is actually a really big profit yielding production chain, so that's a good one. Now the grapes are all nice and mulched. I can do the same thing for the olives, although I have to admit I am curious to see this AI in action from Courseplay, so maybe I'll hook up the cultivator and just fully finish out these grapes first. Look at that. Yeah, he's going. It'll take him about 4 minutes. I think I'm gonna let the AI play this one out, see how he does. All right, just got both the grapes and olives all mulched and cultivated there. Now it is just time to fertilize both of these. It's pretty simple. You just grab the little fertilizer over here. It is perfectly designed to go between those vines. It's nice it can spray both sides at the same time as well, so you don't have to worry too much about getting it, you know, on one side or the other. It does say that it does not need more fertilizer here, so let me take a look. I'll get this taken care of though. I don't think we actually need to do anything here. I can take another look next month as well. Man, I am running to everything with this guy, aren't I? I'll take another look next month to see if it actually needs it, but right now it's not saying it needs any, so maybe I was a little hasty in my decision to fertilize them. That is olive and grape though, all planted. Bit of a weird one, but hey, we got it done, and I like how our orchards are looking. So here on the other side of the map, I already had the class ready to go. It is time for, I believe, our final row crop. It's corn time, baby. So, I mean, what is there to say about corn? It is like, at least in the US, it is the end-all be-all crop. It feels like every single farmer in the entire United States farms this. Now, a lot of that does come from it being a heavily government-subsidized crop, which doesn't necessarily translate into farming sim, but it's an interesting one because we go through so much corn as like a nation that it is farmed to a crazy degree. I mean, corn's kind of in everything, all of our food, but that's kind of a rabbit hole. In farming sim though, it's like an interesting crop. So it's not actually that good of a crop on its own to sell for profit. Has a decent yield and everything like that, but the sell price is very low and it can't be used in any productions. It grows like at an okay rate, you know, somewhat similar to sunflower. Sunflower's the only one that can use like the fast header, so you're gonna be stuck using the regular corn header, but corn headers do look really cool, so I like that aspect a lot. Anything to farm row crops, as I said, I'm a pretty big fan of. But where corn makes up for all of the negatives, which there are a lot of, is with forage harvesting. So instead of using like a combine with the standard method of harvesting corn, if you instead swap to turn it all into chaff using a, oh boy, I might be taking out my cotton there. If you swap to do it with a forage harvester instead and turn all the corn into chaff, it suddenly becomes like a kingly crop because you can turn chaff into silage just like grass, and as we know, silage is completely broken. So if you are able to do something like use a bunker to make that chaff into silage, suddenly you have a huge money machine. If you're wanting to maximize profit, that is the way to do it. So because of that, corn is pretty good, as you might imagine. Anything that can make silage, man, is going to be super, super strong. But I think I've talked your ear off enough about corn. I will get the rest of this field covered. We'll move right on next to another April product. So our next one here is back with the planter. It is also a pretty classic crop for early in farms and new farmers in general. It's one I'd highly suggest if you aren't getting into productions or you're just early on into your farm, and that is soybeans. So as we get our soybeans in the ground now, we can talk about them a little bit. They are a fantastic crop, in my opinion. While the very big obvious downside is that they have 0 productions in the base game, which is a crime. The soy is used for so many different things in the real world, kind of like corn. It's not farmed to that same degree, but it's probably one of the most common crops in America. I know a lot of farmers who rotate this in, not personally, but you get it. The saving grace for soybeans in Farming Simulator is they have a tremendously high sale price. They yield, it's really good. Basically, they are like the king of non-production crops. What you're able to do is on a farm where you don't have any productions, you don't have any money to buy productions, and you need profit this year, you should get planting soybeans, man. Point being, the profit potential on soybeans just sold raw like that, one of the highest in the game, especially for ease of planting. Something like potatoes is going to beat it out raw, but I mean, come on, man, you do not want to be farming potatoes. I'm going to tell you that right now from experience. You do not want to be doing that. So it is one that I would very, very highly suggest. Now, I have been ranting about these long enough. I think you guys get how grain planting looks at this point. This is the exact same as oat and barley and wheat and all that good stuff. I will get this done, and I do believe we have one more crop to plant for the day, and actually for the entire video. The next crop should be the last one on our list. I do believe everything else is planted. I'll get this taken care of. We'll get right into that next crop, but this is the wonderful soybeans. So keeping with the theme of some nice grains, we are actually just moving to the field next door to the soybeans right here. And our very, very last crop of the farm to be planted is sorghum. I think one of the biggest defining features of sorghum, amongst the grains especially, it is the only grain that does not drop straw. So that is a pretty major negative in a world where a lot of times when you're farming grain, you want that straw for some reason or another. You know, usually you're doing animals, so you might want it for TMR. You want to use it for the bedding for cows to get manure instead of slurry, that sort of thing. There's lots of reasons to use it, and that's usually one of the main reasons why you do grains. The one thing that sorghum does have going for it is it's very high yield and worth quite a lot of money. As you might imagine, from a crop that doesn't drop straw, a lot more of that value from the crop comes from the crop itself. If you are wanting to get into bread especially, it is the highest yielding crop of the grains to be put through there. Actually, barley might be a little bit more, but when you compare the grow times, sorghum is like half as much grow time as barley is. So I would say it is a fantastic crop if you're looking to get into productions. If you want to maximize your bread and flour production, this is the one to do. If you like your chickens, sorghum is also good for that. You'll just be missing out on some of that straw for cows if you're wanting to, you know, go for that chicken cow grain situation to work towards. At this point, though, I think I have talked enough while planting all these different crops. I'm gonna get this in the ground, and this will be the last of what you see from this farm in April, at least. We are all done planting, and we're going to get right into the harvest. Okay, farmers, just to put a little bow on planting season here before we move out of April, I just wanted to take a quick little look at all of our plots, make sure we got everything covered. So just going down the list, we got wheat, we got canola, we got barley, corn, and I own all these fields except for these ones down here. We got sunflower, soybeans, potatoes, and sugar beet right next to it. Sugarcane is right up here, cotton right here, sorghum over there in our little like grain alley. We got grapes and olives right there, poplar in lines right there, poplar, excuse me. And then obviously grass and oilseed radish, which are already harvested, so I won't be touching those. But yeah, those are all the arable crops planted in the ground in one little farm here. I'll see y'all for harvest season. Alrighty, farmers, it is now June. We are getting into our proper harvesting season. Now, we only have one crop to actually harvest today, but it's very exciting to be getting started with everything. So we're starting off hot with a little bit of grain action. And of course, I am talking about the long-awaited barley harvest. Pretty excited to break in this nice little harvester we got here. It's a Deutz-Fahr, a little bit on the smaller end for harvesters, but we don't have the biggest fields, so I am not too worried about it. If we hit any issues, I can always upgrade from there, and we're obviously going to need to get a few specialized harvesters and headers and that sort of thing. But today is just a standard grain harvest of that barley, so I will be harvesting it the normal way. You can tell barley is ready to go when it gets that nice golden yellow. Now, I do believe we are ready to actually get harvesting here, so the very first official non-grass harvest has begun. So you can see behind us, leaving a little trail of straw as we go along. Obviously, the header is pretty small, so the, rows of our straw aren't going to be super big. But barley's a pretty nice little crop. I do enjoy it. Really useful in that bread production, as I mentioned before. It's a nice looking one as well. I mean, all the grains look very, very similar when they're ready to go, with maybe the exception of sorghum. They all get this kind of golden yellow with the shoots at the top, and it ain't a harvest without just completely whiffing on the edges. That is what is known as a Taterman Original. So there's going to be a lot of this. This combine is going to get a whole lot of use. We have several grain fields that are going to make use of this header. This header can be used for all the grains. It can be used for canola. It can be used for soybeans. All sorts of good stuff. I do have a little trailer there to offload, but it looks like he's good and stuck, or at least blocking traffic, and brings a tear to my eye. That's exactly what I like to do too. Always remember, if you're not being a menace to your fellow man in this game, the citizens of your town, you just ain't playing it right, okay? That being said, maybe we should get him moved over. Oh man, yeah, there's not even a farmhand in here. He just parked right here. I love it. I absolutely love it. So you can see the more recently planted grains over here. They are still very green, and then you got the barley that's growing for like 9 months now, obviously all ready to go. I think my general strategy for these is do a lot of it myself, but then once we get kind of close to filling up, I will just hire a farmhand worker and work on offloading myself. It is fun offloading the AI workers, I have to admit. Now that we're at 80-something%, I will probably just do that. So I'll get the course play set up and drive on over with the trailer. All right, got a nice farmhand working in there. I mean, look at that guy. You know he's all business. We can drive on over, get this man offloaded. Ooh, perfect timing. He wants to drive while harvesting, so I will get that done. He did miss a little patch right there. I think he lifted that header for some reason. I think I'll show a lot of this harvest, and especially for some of the other grains, I might make it a little more abridged just because they all look very, very similar. Obviously, I'll show some of each one because I want you guys to be able to skip around and see what crops you are curious about and which ones you aren't. But this is going to be how a lot of the grains look when they are being harvested. So we'll just park there for now, and I will get that baler down here. So grabbed the baler here and driving on up. I figure might as well use the square one. It is a lot quicker, more continuous, and the other one's more for auto wrapping while we drive. It's fun to see the workers working while I am away, and this looks just about what like you'd imagine here. You kind of just roll along, scoop up that straw. We will get some bales going. But yeah, I enjoy baling. Gotta show that aspect of it because I think that is one one of the main reasons to do grain. Obviously, there's the stuff like, you know, if it's one of your preferred crops to farm and you just like making bread and everything, go for it. This game, it's a game at the end of the day, so do whatever is the most fun for you. Talking profit potential, though, I feel like you almost have to pick up this straw and use it with your animals in some form or another. Just keeping an eye on things. I will handle the offloading as well. Might get an AI on this once I get to that point where I'm gonna want to offload again, just so we can get baling taken care of, although I think I am catching up quicker. These square balers are just so nice. They just keep going and going and going. Never have to stop, really. I think you guys probably get the gist of how this looks at this point. It is a whole lot of me driving around offloading this guy, him driving up and down, getting all that wonderful barley. I do have a little grain silo on the starter farm. That's something that just comes in the base, you know, new farmer farm on Erlengrat here. So I will definitely be utilizing that for the products that can't be stored in there. Some of the later ones will be harvesting. I'll probably look into storage methods for that too. We're not going to delve too deeply into the productions here. This is more about the crops. I want to show the planting. I want to show the harvesting. Keep things basic. At this point, at the barley, you could just sell it. Best thing to do if you want to sell it raw is just store it until it is at its maximum price. That's something you can check in the calendar, or the price window rather. But this is generally how it looks at the basic level. I think I will just get the rest of this field taken care of now that you guys have kind of seen what it all looks like. I'll get back to you when we're close to done, or maybe just on the next crop, but this is what barley farming looks like, man. Okay, y'all, now we are in July, and it is time for even more harvesting. Today will definitely be another grain day. We started with our barley behind us. We're actually still baling that up. Went through the night, but very nearly done. We have all that barley up in one of our silos, and we're going to be doing the same thing with wheat. Get this all unfolded and get this train going. So as you might expect, this is going to look pretty much identical to what we just did with barley. We're just gonna go around this field a couple times. I mean, it is even kind of hard to tell the difference. They look the exact same at this state. Now, we've been waiting a long time for this wheat. This is one of the slowest growing crops in the game at 10 months. We're going to do the same thing we did for the barley. We're going to bale up all the straw just to give you an idea of what the final result looks like. We can also do a little tally at the very end of all of our crop once it is in our silo and ready to be counted. I think it's probably a good idea, since we have so many crops to take care of today, as well as, you know, several of them being grains. We'll do a little bit of an abridged version here, but hey, man, this is what harvesting wheat looks like, and I'll show you guys what the results are. Now, looky here at this field. I am just offloading the rest of the wheat. We are still doing a little bit of baling up with that straw over there. You can see these two fields look almost identical, though. Harvest went exactly as you think it might, and I think we're ready for the next product. That has been wheat and barley harvested. Our next crop to be harvested isn't far away, and it is following the same trend here. Although there is no straw this time, but we are using the exact same setup, same header, same combine, same little trailer to offload us here. I am, of course, talking about our good field right here that has been growing for 11 whole months. Wow, it's canola time, baby. Let's get this show on the road. We have been cooking up this canola forever now. Now, this one, as I said, does not drop straw. It does do that sort of like shoot out all the, what do you call it, like chaff or something like that, all the extra bits we don't want, all the extra bits that we do not want from the canola. So it kind of covers the ground behind us. That's just a visual thing, though. It really doesn't affect it too much. I do believe it does in real life. It helps the next product when they cultivate it or plow it up, you know, gets incorporated into the dirt and actually helps future products grow there. Helps keep the ground nice and able to take on all that canola that we got going on. So as I said, canola is an interesting one. It just takes forever to grow. It takes forever to grow, and I am not like the biggest fan of oil production. It's okay. Kind of similar to bread production. It's very, very simple, very straightforward, even more so than bread, because you only have to take it to one facility. In Farming Sim, it's kind of a rule of thumb. Like, the easier something is to farm, the lower profit potential it's going to be. Whereas the ones that take a lot of time, take a lot of effort, just like vine farming, those ones are going to make a lot more money. Main exception being silage. That one is dead easy to farm, really cheap to farm, only tedium being you got to do a lot of harvest, but silage just makes an insane amount of money for the amount of effort you put into it. But canola definitely falls on that really easy to farm, very straightforward, but it doesn't make quite as much money as you would hope it does. It's not horrendous though, and it is pretty fun. I do like how this one looks very similar to barley and wheat in its appearance, but it's got kind of that darker color. But yeah, honestly, this is very similar to what we just did on the other two fields. That is the upside and downside of these products that can all use this header. All the grain products are very multifunctional with tools, but it lends itself to all of them kind of looking the exact same, especially when you're just harvesting them back to back to back. Now that trend is not gonna help because we still do have one more grain to harvest today, so I might speed this one up as well, but this is canola. Anyway, I will get this all harvested. You know the drill. It's not that crazy. There's not even straw on this one either, so this will go quick. And I will see you all for the next crop. And our last crop of July is oat. Got our harvester all lined up and ready to roll, so I'm just gonna get going here. So we are dropping it here. We are getting this oat going, and oat is just one of those that I have to praise. I think it might be near about the best grain, mostly just because of the quick turnaround from planting to harvesting. It's very easy to rotate in, do other things with the field. Now the one downside is amongst all the grains, this is the only one that can't be fed to chickens, so you are going to have to plan around that a little bit if you're chicken farming. Whoops, I just hopped right out of the harvester there. So you get when you try to hit D to turn right a little bit, and you hit E and just hop right out of the harvester. That's not good. So this cannot be fed to chickens. That is a pretty major con. It's not great for that little chicken cow grain operation, besides getting the straw. Now the one thing that oat I will forget about is for cereal production. What's funny is I messed it up completely. I always forget this production because I've never done it myself. So it is honey, it is oat, it is raisins, and it is corn. Oat gets a little extra bump there because cereal is actually fantastic for profit. Now that does mean you are going to have to farm grapes, which can be a pain, but as we'll see later, you know, I think it can actually be a lot easier than some people think. Now, finishing up the headland pass here, and I mean, I wish that oat, wheat, and barley looked a little bit different. This one has a little bit different. You can see it doesn't quite have like one of those shoots on top, but other than that, it looks the exact same as the other ones. So I think it's probably time to just finish this out and get to some more different crops than just the grains. And so that is oat. I will see y'all for the next crop once this is harvested. Oh boy, we are here in August, and I know this is a moment many people have been waiting for, if nothing else but to see me in pain. It is very unfortunately potato harvesting season. Oh man, here we go again. Okay, in all its pride and glory, here's the grim. Now, this obviously won't go into my grain silo there at home, but I'm just gonna take it to the train station, which I believe is just right up the road. Yeah, there is one up here. I don't know what Strag Lager is, but it sounds like a delicious beer to me, but you know. Oh man, it is just pathetic. Very familiar sight right here, and wondering why I'm doing this to myself. A classic. I do like how the machinery looks. I've mentioned that. I mentioned that a lot in the potato series. I like how all of it looks, like all the potatoes on the conveyor belts and getting the dirt and all the debris kind of shaken off of them as they go through. But I just want it to be a little bit wider, please, man. Go a little bit faster. You already know this is going to take forever. I think this is by far my smallest field, and I still think this might take the longest of all of them to harvest just because of the speed. Hope everyone is enjoying my pain though, of course. If you are, please consider subscribing. End me of this torture. Actually, you know what? If you subscribe, I'm probably more likely to do more potato farming in the future, unfortunately. So if you like seeing me in pain, make sure to subscribe. You will see more of it. I can near guarantee it. Asking myself how long I want to torture myself doing this. Let's go fully around. Actually, wait, fully around's right here. Oh, baby. Or right now, I've been around this field once, and I'm already 60% full. You make crazy money with potatoes, but the torture just is not worth it. There's just like not enough words to describe just how truly awful potato farming is in this game. It's too bad because I like potatoes. I don't know. I think I've made enough potato pleas. I am going to let this process a little bit, and I will get back to you guys later. See y'all in a bit once I am thoroughly tortured. Alright boys, significantly easier than the potatoey nightmare I was just experiencing. It is time for some sorghum. Now, I love how sorghum looks. It's probably one of the coolest crops in the game. I mean, just look at that nice orange, brown shoots coming out the top. It is our last grain, and it's pretty much the same as the other ones. It does not drop straw, so I don't need to worry about that. Very easy to wrap your head around, though. It is fantastic for new farmers. But give it a try. You are going to love this nice orange-brown crop while you're harvesting, and just sit back and relax and enjoy. So we are filling up pretty quick here. I do need to go get a trailer pulled out here. I don't have one already. It's a lot of fun getting the rest of this grain in and just looking around at some of our other fields. Look at all the straw bales we have around this guy. We are not going to be hurting for straw anytime soon on this farm. Maybe it's for the best this doesn't drop it either. We can give the baler a little break. Okay, I think it's probably time to get a good old farmhand working this field for me while I get a trailer down here and get offloading. Give sorghum a whirl, and I think you'll enjoy it. That is sorghum. Okay, boys, had to step away for a second, let the AI go off, and I come back to my PC. Yeah, this is what we see here. It's beautiful stuff, really. I'm honestly just impressed more than anything. This could be like a painting or something, you know? Uh-oh. I didn't do anything, just to be clear. I have no idea how long they were stuck like that, and, alright. we're pretty much done harvesting, man. I'll see you guys in the next one. Good morning once again to all the farmers. We are out here on our little mini vineyard, and look at that. Look at them grapes. They are looking good and ready to harvest to me. Got a couple new toys to accomplish that task. It is September here at 10:15 in the morning, and looky here. This is the New Holland Broad 9070L. Now this bad boy is just perfect for going over these grapes. So how you do it is this guy actually goes right over the grapevine. That's why it's kind of built like this, and you just line it up so the vines go right through. So grapes being harvested, you can see they're off the vine there, and in the front as they go through, it just takes all them grapes off, and you can see we're filling up. I believe it's oh no, we're shooting out the little things. Oh, cool. Look at that. Look at the animation of the little grapes dropping in there, being put back into the tank. That's really cool. One vine there gave us 183 liters, so I guess not the highest yielding. Grapes sell very, very well, so any amount you can get is gonna be really nice. I like how my guy looks driving this thing. It's such a weird looking device, but it is highly specialized to what it does. So I think to actually offload it, we can just do that really quick since I'm right here. You actually do it from the back, and look at that. So start overloading grapes. It'll open up, and look at all the grapes just pouring right out. It's a pretty cool little animation there, but yeah, that is what it looks like. Makes me want to give a large vineyard a try. I actually think that would be pretty cool. Might be a good way to kind of send off the game, do something I haven't done before Farming Sim 25 releases. Let me know if that's something you guys might be interested in. I've been floating a few ideas for videos after this one, and I mean, that's up for consideration. But regardless, look at that. We got all our grapes. Only 1,000 liters. I mean, obviously, this is like an incredibly small vineyard. But that is it for this harvester. We'll be back here, I believe, next month getting those olives. So these are just a month apart. Quick little grape operation here. It's pretty cool. And yeah, we'll get right on to the next crop. Okay, farmers, October here in technically year 2, 8:30 in the morning. We got some new toys to play around with today as well. You can see here on the left, already got a nice corn header, which, spoiler alert, it's going to be used today. We got that in the trailer there, kind of an oversized load, but I think the pick 'em up truck can handle it. We got another special little one here, which also, spoiler alert, we're going to be using a sunflower header. Okay, finally made it out to the field. Look at that corn over there. The sunflowers are looking extremely dead. Look at that, so sad, but that means they are ready to harvest. Just gotta get this bad boy unfolded, and I am pretty excited to use this this header here. So obviously this is sunflowers, and look, we are flying. This 9-mile-per-hour header is just so much faster. We have a pretty sizable field here of our sunflowers, but I think it's gonna go very, very quick with how fast we're able to move. All these row crops, man, the sunflowers, the cotton, and the corn, all ready to go today. Sneak peek at what's coming next, obviously, for crops. It feels so much faster. It's crazy how much difference just 3 miles per hour can make. In the base game, there are 2 sunflower headers. There's this one, and then there's one that's, I believe it's 10 meters wide. If you are going into oil production, it's like what you want to do, I would highly suggest sunflowers. This is what it looks like though, man. Sunflowers are a fun one to harvest. I enjoy it quite a lot. And as I said, this really shouldn't take very much time at all. Now, one thing I do really like about sunflower is how it looks when it is done. So you get that nice, beautiful, dark seeds coming out of there. I mean, look at that stuff. I love how it looks in the trailer too. Get the rest of this all harvested up, get this guy offloaded, and let's just get right into the next crop. We got a lot to harvest today, baby, but this has been sunflower. Now, you might notice we got the grain header back on this boy. You thought we were done, but we weren't quite done, because I got some lovely soybeans here ready to go. As I said, one of my favorite starter crops. One of the best things to kind of start with on a farm if you just need some early capital, need a nice basic crop that you don't have to worry about producing. You can just get selling it. Production's gonna be a lot of fun, and I do enjoy them, but sometimes it just hits a little different to be pouring out your soybeans there. Maybe rent a train, you know, get that nice ship out price, send it on out, and just watch the profit all come in right at once. Now, as you imagine, pretty basic little crop, you know. Functionally looks very similar to when we harvested sorghum, actually in the field just right next to us. No straw, just using a grain header. It spits out that kind of chaff that covers behind you. I do like how soybean looks, actually, when it is ready to harvest. I got more harvesting to do here, man. I'll get the trailer up here to offload this guy as well, but that's soybeans. Definitely a fantastic crop for what it does. No productions, but hey, sometimes that is a good thing, especially with a high sale price and ease of farming. So yeah, that'll do it for soybeans, and I will see you for the very next crop. Okay, boys, I think we all know what this is. It's more root crop torture time. We are harvesting our sugar beets. Now, I actually do like this quite a lot more than potatoes, to be fair. It still has a pretty small little header there on the front still, so it's not that much better, but it is a bit better. So just like potatoes, sugar beets are one of those. They need a home topper to chop off the top of the crop there so you can get to the sweet, delicious sugar beets in the ground. The all-in-one machines are really good about that. The bigger harvesters, just like this one. This is the Ropa Tiger 6 XL. I like it because it literally has a tiger on the side, as you might be able to see there on the left. And I do have to admit, I like how these machines look as well. I like seeing the conveyor belt with all the sugar beets coming on in. It does remind me of some of the modded harvesters I used in the potato series. They were kind of like 2 for 1. They could do both root crops, and they looked very similar to this. So as you can see, I mean, this is significantly better than potatoes already. I don't think these are even in like the same ballpark. This is just significantly better. On top of just being easier to farm, they have way more functionality for sugar beets, as I mentioned when I was planting them. Granted, like, this is still pretty slow harvesting, especially when you compare it to some of the other crops. So I actually enjoy this crop a lot more than I thought I would. I was in that camp where I kind of just lumped it together, like root crops bad, but it's mostly just potatoes. Sugar beets are like significantly better. So you get a ton of sugar beets. Like I'm almost at what, 26,000 liters already. If you want to make cake, this is probably the best way to do it. I think they're going to be a lot easier to handle versus sugarcane, and that's the only two ways to get sugar in Farming Sim. Anyway, let's get the rest of these sugar beets out of the ground. I mean, this thing's filling up fast, so I need to get it offloaded. So we will let a farmhand handle this big old piece of machinery. We'll get the rest of this field. Should net quite a lot of sugar beets from this. So yeah, this has been Sugar Beets. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, actually. Very surprised by my fondness for these, but yeah, Sugar Beets. I liked our little delivery method down here. So we got our sunflower header there, and then our nice corn header right here. We got our nice field of corn here, and it is just an American classic. We'll get this all unfolded. I do love how corn headers look. I love the spikes, and their unfolding animations are usually really cool. How they kind of flick down the teeth. And we'll get it turned on. You can see the little like rotor blade in there. It's already got a few pieces of corn it's chewing through. Now harvesting corn looks very cool. Like it is just undeniably very cool. Now one thing I actually wanted to correct that I talked about while I was planting all this is I said that corn isn't really used in productions. But I had completely forgotten cereal production. So cereal production needs oats, it needs raisins, it needs honey, and it needs corn. I've never actually made cereal before, so I don't know if it's just one recipe for it. Just making sure I am on record correcting myself for that, just because I was dumb and totally forgot about cereal production. And then obviously earlier when I mentioned about forage harvester and chaff, I'm not going to be doing that for harvesting this time. I think I'm just going to leave it where I'm gathering the corn. If you're wanting to make silage, that is a fantastic way to do it. You would just get a forage harvester out here instead of this regular combine, and you would go over the field, collect all your chaff, put it into a bunker. That's probably the best way to do it in the base game, and just get it cooked up into silage. This is corn though. It is it's really cool. I love how the stalks look as you run over them with the teeth of the combine. Now this guy is already completely full. I've been yapping this whole time about corn, so I need to get it offloaded here. We'll get the pipe out, and I do believe I have a guy nearby that can offload. We got us our nice Bureau tractor here, and we got a lot of corn to grab out of this here harvester. That's some good all-American corn right there. I guess it's not all-American if I'm growing it over here in Europe, huh? In Erlengrot. That's some good Swiss Alp corn right there. Something about growing corn in the Swiss Alps don't make a lot of sense to me, but what do I know? Maybe they do farm corn out there. Probably about time to get a farmhand back to harvesting here. I will handle offloading and all that goodness. This has been corn. I hope you enjoy, and definitely recommend working on some productions with corn. Get that forage harvester, get that cereal, get that corn, man. See you for the next crop. Okay, boys, well, it might be time for some pain. This is a sugarcane harvester, and we got a nice field of sugarcane over here. I actually really like how that looks. It's very cool. So this is a Case IH Osthoft 8800MR. That's a whole lot of words. I don't really know what most of them mean. Now this is kind of cool. So it has a little like pipe out on the back, and it can do 2 rows on the front. That's the part that's gonna be painful. The cool part is it does have an optional little like trailer hitch that you can put on the back, and this is all base game. So you can attach a little trailer. I did pick this one because it is for sugarcane. Now I'm just gonna kind of get this guy over here. We'll get it all unfolded, and I'm gonna tell you right now, this is probably gonna be a crop that I don't do a lot of it on my own, because I can tell you it's gonna take a while. Now I think I'm harvesting here. So this is sugarcane. I was looking it up here. Oh, it wasn't lowered. I think that's it. Yeah, there it goes. I will need to go back over that. I probably destroyed some of the crop, but you know what? It's okay, man. So this is sugarcane. This is a very strange crop. I obviously have no experience harvesting it. I got to admit, the header does look pretty cool, though. The way it's like just cutting the top off of them, and we're scooping up the rest. The way it works is it takes the top of it off there and then cuts it into little tiny pieces. So that's why on the bottom it kind of looks the way it does. You might be able to tell this is going to take a while. It's very slow moving, very slow, or low width, I should say, and just turning this thing around is kind of awkward because of how like narrow it is. Tipping this thing out is kind of strange. You basically like lift up that back part and you can pour it into another trailer. Everything with sugarcane kind of seems like a pain point, though. I'm gonna be real with you. I like the sugarcane kind of pouring into the back. It cuts it up into little pieces. I really like that animation of the topper that's just like cutting off the top of all the sugarcane. The harvester works a little more smoothly than I'd hope. It does look like it handles about 2 rows at a time, which is the same as the planter. The planter took a long time to plant all this. I definitely set a worker out on that. I will say it is worth a lot of money, as you can imagine. Anything that's this annoying to farm is going to be worth a lot of money. If you want sugar, just do sugar beets. You already saw how much easier it is than this. This is a crazy looking machine though. And you can obviously dump this in like a variety of ways. I don't know if you can like move the pipe over, but the pipe is just very much in the way. Now look at that. So you can like pour it out manually. You can lift it up and down. Like I have it up way too high right now. Granted, that is a whole lot of sugarcane. I'm probably gonna fill this bad boy up. Also, look at that poplar growing there. That's gonna be an interesting one to take care of too. Oh boy. I'm gonna take this to the train station. This is a little bit of a weird crop. This has been the very frustrating world of sugarcane. As I said, I'm just gonna work on getting this all automated. I don't want to touch this. Frankly, this is a dumpster crop. Don't farm this. You're just gonna be mad like I am. I'm sticking to sugar beets for all my sugar needs, man. That's just how it's gonna go. Okay, and I would suggest you do the same. All right, I'm moving on to more fun crops because yeah. I'm sick of this. Ooh, baby. Now we're talking. This is the good stuff right here. We are moving right on to cotton. Pay no mind to the sugar beet boys over here. They're just doing their thing. So it does need a specialized harvester. There are 2 of them in the base game. I would highly suggest this one. It's the Case one. There's also a John Deere one. Unfortunate problem is that John Deere costs like twice as much. So the Case here will make like these big old bales. They are square bales. And the John Deere does round ones. While the harvesters and equipment itself is very expensive, oh boy does it pay off. You can make so much money with cotton. Even if you don't want to get into productions, you can spit out these big gigantic funny looking bales of cotton and sell those, and you're still going to make a ton of money. And speaking of productions, if you are kind of curious to see all of this get refined into further stuff from this farm, I'm not going to do it in this video, but I might be coming out with a little bit of a follow-up video where I focus more on the productions from all these crops rather than planting and harvesting, which is the focus here. But this is what cotton looks like, man. These harvesters are pretty cool. I like how they look. They're just this little like box with the teeth at the front, right? So it just goes through and gathers up all that cotton. The other thing is it's very aesthetically pleasing to go through these fields and just see, you know, all the white from the cotton. You go over it and it just has the stalks left behind. It's a great crop though. I'll be really happy once I'm able to spit out one of those bales. So I am going to continue with this. I think I've talked enough, spun enough yarn. Do you get it? Even though this is not yarn. I think I've talked enough about cotton. I am just going to get to the point where we're spitting out a bale, and I'll show you guys kind of what that looks like. Oh, so now look at this. Perfectly tabbed over to our AI worker. He just plopped out a good old bale, so it kind of pours on out of the back, and you can see the bale is just so funny looking, and it is also 20,000 liters of cotton all in a big old bale like that. So I will just quickly show how we load this up before we just get done with cotton here and probably moved on to some of our other stuff. So the way to do it here is to get yourself one of these nice little bale loaders. as look at that big open field of sugar beets. Oh yeah. You can just drive it on up to the bale that's freshly popped out of that harvester over there. It has like an operating position, so we can kind of get into that, and it has these little like hooks on the back that will grab the bale and kind of lift it up onto the bale loader itself, the little trailer here. So you just arrange it here and get it nice and backed up so it hits the bale right in the center. That should do just fine. And look at that, so it's hooked on there, and we have one whole bale on this trailer, so we can get it back into transport position. And then from here, you just take it wherever you want. You could leave these on the field until peak pricing for cotton, which I believe is in the winter. If you want to produce it, you would just take this on up to the spinnery and drop it off there. But yeah, that is it for cotton. This is how it looks. We should probably get one more bale out of this. For now, I'm just gonna leave this here, and we'll just store it until it's at peak pricing later this year. So that's cotton, one of my all-time favorite crops. Hope you enjoy it too. But yeah, on to the next crop. Now back on out to the quote-unquote vineyards, and it's olive harvesting time. What I did not realize is that the olive harvester and the grape harvester are actually different. I mean, look at them side by side. It is almost the exact same, but each one only harvested their selected crop. That's honestly pretty annoying because they're really expensive. It's like $300,000 for each one of these. You'd think that it would just be able to be used for either one. I don't know. But either way, we are here to harvest these olives. Olives can only be harvested in the in October, in the fall. So I will go through. It's very, very similar. I don't even know. Can you see the olives? I suppose you can. Look at that. Little olives on there, and you can see where we've harvested. They are obviously already gone. One thing I did not mention with grapes is between harvests, you obviously don't need to like replant them or anything like that. You might need to fertilize, but the one thing that I haven't done that I probably won't end up doing here, just because obviously I'm not farming these again unless my plans change later, you need to prune them between harvests. Now the easiest way to see what you need here, it might only be for grapes. I'm not sure if you need it for olives or not, but you get a little pruner that you can just stick on the back of your handy dandy little tractor there that goes between the rows, and you just prune each side. Man, I am having issues today, huh? Yeah, so turn on your harvester once again. But yeah, as you go through, it just kind of prunes off any of the extra growths on these to keep them nice and clean. I actually have enjoyed the vine crops more than I thought I would. Now olives, you can put them into the oil factory and make them into olive oil. Beyond that though, you pretty much just sell the olive oil and it makes crazy profit. I'll tell you that right now. Both the vine crops here make a whole lot of money. So just got one more row to do here, and then we'll get it offloaded. Unlike grapes, this one was just suggested to use the general trailers that can kind of hold everything. So we got one right over there. I can come pick it up with a tractor later, or even use our little guy over here. I haven't used him for anything except for the farming on these guys. To be fair, his horsepower is maybe like 100, so it is not the most powerful tractor in the world, and it looks very funny. But either way, look at that. We got all our olives. Only what, 1,100 liters or so of olives. Not even a third of the tank here filled up. And we'll get this hooked up and we'll see about delivering these. I just wanted to see that animation of them pouring out before we move on to something else. But we are actually running out of crops. There's not really too many left to take care of here, which is very exciting. So let's get that all lined up there. We'll hop back in here and we'll start overloading. Assume it's a very similar animation, but you can see all the olives in there too. That's pretty cool. Pour them on in. Look at all them olives. But yeah, that'll do it for the vine crops. Hope you enjoyed. It was a fresh little view at both of them here. I had a good time with it, and I'll consider doing more in the future. But yeah, let's we'll move on to something else. I think it's just poplar after this, and we might have to wait a month or so before we can get those taken care of. So yeah, we will get right to that. Howdy once again, farmers, for maybe the last time here. We are in the final stretch. We are harvesting our final crop. It is poplar. Over here, they are all brown. That actually means they're ready to go. So here we have a little guy that can make some bales. The Anderson Group Bio Baler WB55. And then in the front, this kind of like smushes them down to be prepared to go through the bio baler. This is the Anderson Group bumper. So the strat here is you drive over these guys with the bumper with the baler in the back. It's going to spit out these little bales of wood chips. So that is what you farm when you plant and harvest poplar. And make a decent amount of money. Obviously, kind of a small working width here, but should be pretty easy. Anything with bales tends to be pretty straightforward. Now, if you were wondering why I still have sugarcane, I know I said that I would get done harvesting this whole thing. Well, spoiler alert here, I got so fed up with this. I barely harvested any of it, but we got some of it done. I have some of it in the train station silos back there. I despise sugarcane. But back to the issue at hand, we need to get some poplar harvested up here. It is a row crop. You can see they're pretty well spaced out. It does look pretty cool, I got to admit, but we will get that kind of smushed down there and get it run over with the baler. So you can see the baler just kind of eats it up like a hungry hippo. Now the other way to get poplar harvested here is actually with a forage harvester. The forage harvester can chop it up and shoot the wood chips into a trailer nearby. I'm going for the baler route because it seemed a little more fun to me. So speaking of which, we got our first bale here, assuming it, oh, I need to put on turn on automatic drop, excuse me. So looky here, we'll just go take a little peek. It's just a little round bale and it is wood chips, 2,000 liters of wood chips. So pretty cool. You just go on through here and get them all chipped up. That thing just like pulverizes these poplar and turns them into wood chips. And you can go and sell them from there. You can store them up for later. You can see right here, I believe Felsbrunn is through the train, so you would need to send them on the train on here. But they can also be sold at like a biomass heating plant. But it has a pretty high price, as you can see. So poplar definitely makes some good money. The other way to get wood chips is through log farming. You can actually put them through a wood chipper, your logs that you harvest there. Once you do that, you'll have the same result as you would with poplar. It's a pretty interesting little crop. Not too much to say here. We're probably gonna get maybe like, I don't know, we're gonna get a decent amount of bales here. I suppose the only downside is it does take a bit to farm here, but I have to admit it's very easy. I have to say poplar is really good money, especially because you don't input that much. I did have to get the specialized planting machine, but it did seem like you could use it to plant regular trees for logging operations as well. So it does have multi-purpose, multi-use. The poplar that you put into the planter there, that's a lot of peas in a row, huh? Those were very, very cheap, maybe only 300 bucks or so, and it planted this entire field. It is really cheap, and none of the equipment is like that expensive. So I did plant this literally right when I got into the game, so in August. I believe if you plant it in March, it will be done by August or September. Get a solid harvest every single year. I'm actually very impressed with this as a crop, especially after dealing with the hell that was the sugarcane farming over there. Hired an AI to keep harvesting, and I just wanted to show you it actually uses the exact same bale loader we used earlier for those silage bales over there. It just spits out the small little 125 I think it was centimeters width of bales, so it can just be picked up with this guy. But just to kind of show it off, we'll just scoop a few up here, and suddenly you are moving around your wood chip bales. Can't say I've ever seen a bale of wood chips before, but here it is. So I actually enjoyed this crop quite a lot. Very impressed. Can't be produced any further, which is unfortunate, but I mean, straightforward crops are awesome, even though this one did need some specialized equipment. It's just nice to have something that isn't overly reliant on you know, taking care of it all year. You can kind of just plant it, forget that it's even there, come back and harvest whenever you have a little bit of time to. Get yourself some bales. These are worth a lot of money, but Hey, good money and a fun crop to farm. Very hands off. I am actually extremely impressed with this crop. This is way better than I thought it would be. It is actually officially the end. We have planted and harvested every single crop. I'm just gonna do a little drive around here while we do a little bit of a retrospective. With the crops being such a main part of farming and the game in general, it made sense to have experience with all of them. Whether it's all these guys dropping straw, soybeans being like the easiest thing ever, me getting extremely mad at sugarcane and not even finishing the harvest, or being really surprised with how much I like poplar farming, or the vineyards of grapes and olives being really great. I'm really happy with everything that I learned from this series, and I hope you guys found it pretty interesting to go through all these crops. Now, before we fully sign off, we're going to do a little bit of a top-down view of all these fields, just from the map, just to show you everything that I've harvested and planted and all that good stuff, and then we're going to look at some final yields. So just kind of doing a top-down view of my equipment everywhere, you can see everything has been harvested outside of these two fields. Now, this is obviously the poplar that's still being harvested, and we're going to let that finish out, but kind of get the idea already, even if we don't. Sugarcane, I'm leaving. I've already talked about it at length. We have our grains here in barley, wheat, and canola all in the middle. Our oats, our sorghum, and our soybeans here. Moving on over, we start with our row crops at sunflowers, potatoes, our sugar beet, the good old cotton field with his big old bales, and then of course you can't forget the corn, man. I was very pleasantly surprised with grapes and olives. I actually enjoyed those quite a lot, and obviously poplar was just amazing. And then you get on to your grass. I mean, I talked about that forever. Silage is king, man. Silage is king. And then oilseed, I don't know how it snuck on the list, but hey, here it is. And now to final yields. So we have our list here of all our different yields from our products. Now, a lot of these are just entirely dependent on the field size, so you have to kind of take these with a grain of salt. But you can see a lot of our grains right in the 40,000 liter range. Same with canola, sorghum being a little higher. And then you look at canola and like, what is that, man? That not even 40,000 liters, and it took almost a full year to grow. Canola is not a good crop. Grapes and olives, obviously the yield is so tiny. I had tiny little vineyards, but also look at the sale price, man. That is juicy. Now we're getting into the root crops. I mean, this is insane. Look at the yield. 111,000 and nearly 200,000 liters of sugar beets. Talking about the other ones that weren't listed there, they are all the bale crops like wool and poplar, obviously, and silage and hay. Those ones won't be represented, but you can see, look at all of those nice bales out there. We're going to have the same thing with poplar and all these goodies. I hope you guys enjoyed going through that little journey with me here in my Euro outfit and funny facial hair. This farm might not be done just yet, we shall see, but obviously all the planting and harvesting is done. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a like if you liked the video, and let me know what your favorite crop is down below. Appreciate y'all, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya!